Welcome to our series at the Winter Gardens in Blackpool, looking at all the hidden secrets and exploring its rich history inside the building. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Great Wheel that loomed over the Winter Gardens complex for 32 years, and also take a quick look at the short-lived Steel Rollercoaster. The Winter Gardens Great Wheel was proposed by Walter D. Bassett of the Gigantic Wheel Company, who also designed the Great Wheels at Earl's Court, Paris and Vienna. I've already done a detailed video on the Earl's Court wheel. You can find that on my channel. He envisioned another version of his successful Earl's Court wheel just 1 year later, but this time in Blackpool and to rival the nearby Blackpool Tower. It had many names throughout its life, known as the Big Wheel, Gigantic Wheel, the Great Wheel, and by locals as the Jolly Wheel. It was to be constructed on land leased from the Winter Gardens Company that used to house a bowling green, miniature lake and manicured gardens. This is where the Olympia Hall stands today. It was constructed on the principle of a bicycle wheel, with a supported steel axle connected to the outer rim with steel tension cables. The solid axle would be 40 foot in length and weighed over 30 tons. It was transported by a road locomotive from Blackpool's Talbot Road goodyard to the Winter Gardens site. It took 16 hours to move between them and caused damage to the road surfaces and pavements on its way. It smashed flags to pieces and ruptured a 3-inch gas main at the junction of Coronation Street and Adelaide Street. The wheel opened in 1896, just 2 years after the Blackpool Tower, and only took 6 months to construct, with no deaths reported during the build process. Now this was an amazing feat in those days. It stood at over 220 feet high and weighed over 1,000 tons without passengers. It was capable of carrying 40 passengers in each of the 30 gondolas, meaning that it could carry over 1,200 people per ride, and at 30 minutes for a complete revolution. It was driven by two 12-horsepower Roby steam engines that turned the wheel with a steel drive cable and not chains like its Earl's Court predecessor. It was said to cost a great deal more in maintenance fees than other similar wheels, due to its location near the sea and the salt-laden air eating away at this steel monster. It was becoming increasingly costly to operate and proving a challenge to fill all the gondolas against its towering neighbour, and so the company went bust in 1916. It was then purchased by the Winter Gardens Company for a measly £1,150, who would operate the wheel on their premises themselves. It ran for a further 12 years under the new ownership, until the Winter Gardens Company themselves were bought out by their long-term rival, the Blackpool Tower Company. It was agreed that the wheel was no longer viable, and it was direct competition for their own tower that was much more popular and better located. And so it was dismantled after its last trip round in October 1928, after 32 years of operation. The wheel was disassembled in a similar way that it was constructed, piece by piece, and parts were stripped, sold off or scrapped. An auction was held for the gondolas, selling at just £20 each, and transported to their new locations by horses. Many were sold to the local area for different uses, including some that lasted right up to the end of the millennium. But only one is still believed to remain, and that is said to be in excellent condition. The gondola is now used as an extension or conservatory to someone's house, and can be found just on the outskirts of Blackpool. It has been clad in PVC on the outside, but the original wood interior can still be seen preserved on the inside. This is the only remaining legacy of this once great wheel, another icon of Blackpool's past. If you know of any other remaining gondolas, please let me know in the comments below. Now let's head to the other side of Winter Gardens and take a look at another long-lost attraction that once stood at the complex. So I've just relocated to St John's Square, just outside the Winter Gardens, and behind me is what is known as the Empress Building. Now this was built as the original entranceway into the Empress Ballroom. So you would have headed through the building there into the carriage entrance and then into the Italian Gardens, but while we're here it's worth mentioning that there used to be a steel roller coaster here all the way back in 1902. The roller coaster was known as Les Montagnes Russes, which is the Russian mountains in French, and it was made out of steel, and it was one of the earliest forms of steel roller coaster ever. So as I said, it was located just behind this building here, roughly around here on the other side. And as you can see today, that is taken up now with the new Opera House. And again, I say new Opera House, that's from the 1930s. So that's why we know that the roller coaster disappeared, because when that was built, the roller coaster would have had to be removed. This was one of the earliest forms of a steel roller coaster, as wood was commonplace in roller coaster construction in those days. It was known back then as an elevated railway. The roller coaster opened in 1902 and is believed to have closed sometime during the 1920s, when the new Opera House was built on its footprint. Here's some rare footage of people sitting in the ride cars. This is before the roller coaster had finished construction and opened, and is the only footage believed to exist of this ride. Join me in the final part of our Winter Gardens series, where we look at a Blackpool legend, the tunnels that ran under the complex and allegedly to the Blackpool Tower. Did they exist? Now that's the question. Find out in the next video.